It's very important for you to know whether something is MRI conditional, MRI safe, or MRI unsafe. There are some websites like marysafety.com and magresource.com where you can find out the true type of the device, whether it is safe, unsafe, or conditional, and understand the conditions related to it from the manufacturer's website. The manufacturer will tell you if you can use the device and what its conditions are, as well as how to use it. The strength of the magnetic field you use is also important. For example, MRI safe looks like this, MRI conditional looks like this, and MRI unsafe looks like this. Conditional devices always have manufacturer conditions that need to be followed. Pacemakers and similar devices are, of course, unsafe. There are some stents in cardiac and vascular procedures that indicate you can image the patient after 6 weeks or so. This is what is meant by MRI conditional. For example, plastic, silicone, or titanium materials can be used very safely without causing any problems. Okay, so we talked about this. For example, there are things that say you should use a device. This is available, so you can perform the scan on this device or the one that is available. Some patients might feel dizzy, have headaches, experience noise, or feel a metallic taste in their mouth. This can happen if you are dealing with something above a certain level. It's very rare for anything less than that to occur. We talked about the issues. Now let's discuss the second thing, which is what's inside the machine. The gradients change the magnetic field. The change in the magnetic field, folks, causes magnetic field interactions. The sound that the doctor mentioned earlier, she said she hears a sound with every sequence, especially those that depend on the gradients. You notice that there is a specific sound. This sound is a result of the magnetic field interactions that occur. That's why the gradient magnetic field affects the noise that exists, which can potentially cause acoustic injury. This is why headsets are installed to prevent this noise from reaching the air and causing problems or injury for the patient. There are some devices called low noise imaging software, such as Silent Scan, JVG, XF Siemens, and Comfort Tune in Philips. These are some devices that reduce the sound produced during the MRI to the minimum possible level, thereby minimizing the impact on the patient's ears. However, its sound can be minimized, thus not affecting the ear. One of the problems is that when you change the magnetic field, it affects the peripheral nervous system, meaning the peripheral nerves present can be stimulated, which may cause pain. Or a heating effect. Sometimes the patient may feel this, especially if their body is close to the coil or the magnet itself, which can stimulate their nervous system and cause pain or discomfort. The third needs are the radio frequency coil and RF pulse. The RF pulse can be 90 degrees or 180 degrees. As the flip angle increases, the amount of energy deposited in the body also increases. Therefore, all sequences that use 180-degree pulses, such as spin echo, result in high energy deposition within the patient compared to those that do not use 180 degrees. There are different types of coils that transmit the RF pulse. The energy amount referred to as SAR, specific absorption rate, is measured in watts per kilogram, where watts is the unit of energy and kilograms is the mass. The absorption in patients can reach up to 3 watts per kilogram in head cases, and up to 4 watts per kilogram in abdominal cases. If you are dealing with a device, for example, from 1.5 to 3 Tesla, it is as if you have multiplied the SAR by 4, meaning you have increased the amount of energy that is absorbed. Also, one of the things is that the SAR of the energy you are monitoring from the RF pulse undergoes absorption, which creates a heating effect. This absorbed energy is measured per unit of mass, which is in kilograms, and its unit is called watt per kilogram. This is the unit of SAW, the specific absorption rate. So the SAR expresses the amount of energy absorbed from the RF pulse that I am delivering to the patient. Okay. For me, the more I increase the 180-degree RF pulse, the more I am increasing the energy that gets absorbed within the skin. This raises the temperature of the tissues inside the patient. If you administer a sequence that relies heavily on RF pulse, this can create a heating effect within the patient's tissues. This effect increases if the patient has conditions such as diabetes, hypertension, or cardiac impairment. A patient with compromised cerebral regulatory capacity may struggle to regulate their body temperature. Sometimes this occurs in cases of pregnancy where vital heating can happen due to exposure to RF fields. Therefore, it is essential to monitor the RF fields for all patients, as they should not exceed 4 watts per kilogram for the abdomen and 3 watts per kilogram for the brain. As I mentioned, if we are talking about a fast spin echo sequence, it relies on 180-degree pulses that provide high energy deposition, while the gradient echo only uses 90-degree pulses, resulting in a lower specific absorption rate SR compared to fast spin echo. To reduce the SAR, you can increase your TR repetition time. This provides an opportunity for cooling the tissues, which will reduce your flip angle, thereby decreasing MZ or minimizing your energy deposition. We mentioned that 180 degrees will provide higher energy than 90 degrees, and so on for the slices. The more you reduce, the less excitation or RF pulse you will send. For example, if you want to take multiple images, the same concept applies. The more you increase, the more you will enhance your effect. Therefore, the temperature must also remain low to assist the tissue process. If you can use a high SAR sequence, you should take a gap between each sequence or examination. This can be done sometimes if the coil cable is not isolated or if part of it is missing, as this could cause skin burns in this manner. If the cable is wrapped in a circular manner, it can induce a magnetic field itself and cause burning, interfering with the main magnetic field and resulting in skin burns for the patient if they are in contact with the coil. This is why pads are placed between the patient and the coil, or between the patient and the main body of the magnet itself. This can cause burns from the existing gradient or from the interaction between different magnetic field interferences. If a tattoo is present, it may contain small iron oxide particles, which are ferromagnetic and can become magnetized, leading to the heating effect or skin burn that you are observing. Sometimes the patient may experience flashes, like a flash in their eyes, especially with high field devices, such as those operating at 4 Tesla. Let's pay attention to one last thing regarding the safety that I have. Come here and let's take a look at the safety device you have here. Here is the machine. I swear, if he is talking about safety, he will enter with an oxygen cylinder and so on. Right? Isn't that what is being communicated? He might even bring a helmet and gloves for extra protection, just to be extra cautious. I was just saying no. But what do you think? Right now, there is an anesthesia machine that is compatible, of course, with the device, but you will have to pay for it, I swear. According to the vendor, doctor, I have to point out something regarding the MRI zones. As you may already know, there are zones 1, zone 2, zone 3, and zone 4, which are crucial for safety and efficiency in the medical imaging process. These 4 zones have been present in the MRI department for a long time, and they are in the department in the UAE, and have been carefully designed to ensure proper functioning. Zone 1 is the entrance area before the patient enters the reception area, which is completely outside and accessible to the public without any issues. This zone is marked in green. As for the access area, it is 5555, which is inside. I will explain it to you, of course. There is nothing here, meaning 0.5. Here it is 0.5. Here it is 0.5. 0.5 in a 0.5. Here, in these devices, the resistance should be less than 1 when achieving the home setting. Here, zone 1, which is the green area, is where the patient comes in. You are supposed to conduct the necessary procedures for the patient. You should have the patient's history taken, and any existing implants must be noted. All of this must be done for the patient. Zone 2 is very important for MRI screening and the preparation of the patient. After that, the doctor enters zone 3 to ensure that there are no issues. This is the restricted area that only clients and doctors who do not have any implants or anything that would prevent them from undergoing an MRI can enter. I have confirmed that the patient is completely free of any issues and can enter zone 3, which is the yellow area, restricted access for me. Here, they use the ferromagnetic detector. The ferromagnetic detector checks for ferromagnetic metals that may be present on the patient. Therefore, it is always advisable to ask the patient to remove all their clothing and wear a gown, as there might be some metal or items they are unaware of, like keys. The ferromagnetic detector is used to detect any metal on the patient. Sometimes, even the door itself can have a connection to the frame, so when the patient enters, it can indicate that there is metal on them. This is more common with external items rather than internal ones. If something is inside, the detector won't beep. The ferromagnetic detector is only for external items, not internal ones. For internal items, you need to inform the doctor. Yes, I just mentioned that, doctor. Sorry. It happens. It happens. Yes, I was just about to say the mask, honestly. I've had a lot of experiences, honestly, and we really sit and search for metal, but there isn't any. We find it strange, and it seems like it's from the equipment that is available. Therefore, the user should importantly question and have sufficient ongoing knowledge about this topic. What does he mean by that? In these topics, you mean that inside the machine, you have what is around the device, which is the magnetic resonance imaging MRI machine you mentioned earlier. Okay, there's no problem reaching it, whether you're on a chair or anything else. Once you pass that point, happy birthday to you. This bomb can be snatched at a speed of up to 70 km/h. A car is moving. Okay, as I mentioned, these are the different zones I have, and there are many questions that are asked to the patient. This should all be done before they enter the MRI machine. This is the device, as I mentioned, which is connected to the door itself. So, when someone enters, it detects any metal present. Of course, some patients may have claustrophobia and feel scared, especially with close magnetic resonance imaging, where the dimensions are small. It is preferable to work as fast as you can to reduce the examination time. Sometimes patients get annoyed by the noise from the gradient. All of these are issues that can cause the patient to have a phobia about undergoing the examination and the procedure. Open MRI is definitely better. Yes, it is available, but there are some cases where it won't be suitable for you. I mean, you are an open MRI candidate, but you will find, doctor, that the homogeneity of the magnetic field means that you cannot perform the measurements on it. I see that. In order to achieve what you need, you require a close magnetic resonance imaging setup and a more homogeneous magnetic field to obtain respectable images and data. The open MRI is okay for 4 extremities, and that's fine for the brain and spine, but more than that, oh, now there is a Siemens device. I believe it is equipped with the whole. They connect music and other things to help the patients relax and unwind. As we can see the various shapes they create now to reduce the phobia that the patients have and make the patients feel more comfortable, such as. So the quenching, as I was talking about, is related to the cooling process. The inert gas present, which is called cryogen gas, specifically helium, is always dealt with during emergencies. If there is a problem, for example, if the device has a crack, you must shut down the machine because patients need to exit very quickly. Otherwise, they could experience suffocation due to exposure to the gas. Patients should be evacuated and no one should be present at that time to avoid suffocation from exposure to this gas. So this definitely needs to be handled properly. It is necessary for the area to be completely clear and for no one to be present. After the quenching process, the gas responsible for the cooling of the magnet must remain. Of course, the magnet is always on. I cannot turn it on and off like with CT or X-ray. All right, let's continue. In just a second, because the children are being noisy, we will return to Mike.
Thank you. Subscribe to the channel. This is, well, hello. A simple thing, isn't it? I told you to come. I told you to come. I told you. Okay, fine, because I am abed. Sod returned.
I sincerely apologize, dear doctors. I swear it's all completely fine. Look, in order for you to successfully achieve the magnetization you want, it's not as straightforward or easy as you might initially think. For example, you might casually say, okay, let's turn off the electricity and turn it back on, and that's it, right? Well, you need to fully understand that to achieve the magnetic field and the force you're talking about, you need to run the electric field in a consistently stable manner without any significant variation, and it has to be at an extremely high power feed because it generates a substantial amount of heat in the device. So, unfortunately, I can't just turn off the device and turn it back on, because if I do that, for instance, when there's a malfunction, you might remember that in an MRI machine, they explicitly tell you that the device can't operate for about 12 to 14 hours to reach the necessary homogeneity of the magnetic field so that it can be suitable for another scan. The topic is just that I compared this to something very strong and very high in order to generate the magnetic field I'm talking about. And Tesla, or this kind of thing, won't be easy to revert back and forth, but okay. Okay, in some of what we talked about last time, we discussed diffusion and some sequences that started to delve a bit more into details about magnetic resonance imaging, MRI. Now, I want to ask a question. I have some sequences that primarily depend on the homogeneity of the magnetic field. Look, everyone, we need to agree on something. Where do I get my signal? From inside the patient. What does it mean to work on an atom? What gives me the best signal in the patient's body? Is it the water molecule? All right, all the elements present in the body contain hydrogen, or most of the elements do, but for example, fat contains hydrogen and water also contains hydrogen. So remember the topic of chemical shift that I was talking about. What does chemical shift mean? It means that I have the hydrogen from fat and the hydrogen from water. The two protons inside them do not experience precision at the same speed. So this difference in precision frequency between fat and water appears, and the chemical shift artifact does not show up unless with a strong magnetic field, which is 1 Tesla or 2 Tesla. Take this as a rule. The more advanced or powerful your MRI device is in terms of magnetic field, the more it initiates a difference in the precision frequencies between different atoms, making the difference in precision appear more clearly between the different atoms present. That's why I cannot perform MRI spectroscopy on a basic device. I can't, for example, do the imaging. I can't do this in bold on an open device. Why can't I do MRI with a preview? Because I need, guys, to differentiate the precision, frequencies between the different attunes. This helps me gather new information that I don't get in the open MRI. For example, in our bodies, there are two types of blood: oxygenated blood and what they call deoxygenated blood. So, when stimulation occurs in a specific organ, or if you want to touch something specific, there is a place in the brain where this stimulation happens and a high blood flow reaches that area. What does this high blood flow do? It activates the command to my hand, so my hand performs that action. For instance, if I touch something hot, that heat sends a signal to my brain at a specific location, responsible for my hand's movement to pull it away from the fire. So, in that area, there was a high blood supply. When the blood supply increases in this area, it delivers oxygen or oxygenated blood at a higher ratio than deoxygenated blood. The blood supply that does not appear in a higher area should have a ratio between oxygenated and deoxygenated blood that is normally close to each other, for example, with only a small percentage difference. So when there is stimulation to a specific area or something in the brain, blood flow increases, leading to a higher proportion of oxygenated blood, which contains oxygen. This is the form of oxyhemoglobin, while deoxyhemoglobin is the hemoglobin that is not bound to oxygen. Let's look at the chemistry of the structure of oxyhemoglobin, which will increase in presence and proportion in the active area of the brain compared to the area of deoxygenated blood. What is the difference in the structure? Here, the ion present in hemoglobin is linked to oxygen. But it is not only linked to oxygen, there are free electrons. So, going back, Dr. Islam said that since there are free electrons, there will be a magnetic field. Since there is a magnetic field, it will affect the hydrogen present around it, causing it to create inhomogeneity in the magnetic field. Why? Because it will itself generate a magnetic field, thus causing a change in the main magnetic field, which may help in dephasing or not. Does the dephasing weaken the signal or strengthen the signal? The signal is lost when there is a high presence of deoxygenated hemoglobin, which creates free electrons. What do the free electrons do? They generate a magnetic field. This magnetic field causes inhomogeneity in the basic signal. This inhomogeneity makes one proton exposed to a higher magnetic field than another, causing it to precess faster and move away, leading to a divergence that results in a signal loss. Now, if the opposite happens with oxygenated hemoglobin, which has a high presence of oxygenated hemoglobin and no free electrons, there will be no divergence, and thus there will be a signal loss. So, what do I want to do? I want to take a patient and place them under the MRI machine and perform, for example, a light flash and start observing the effect of the flashing light.